Hey, it's Jenny, and we are going to do two memory planner layouts today. I am using a big undated happy planner. This is where my sweet spot is right now for the way that I like to do this project. My first memory planner was in 2016. So yes, this means this is my 10th memory planner, which is absolutely bananas. I print my photos on a Epson PictureMate printer, although for many, 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 many years I used the Canon Selphy and I still really love that too. I use the PicFrame app to create the collages that I use for my photos that are approximately 2 by 3 inches. It's not exactly, but digital prints and all. All right, so I like to cut out my photos and lay them down on the layout first. This is what makes the most sense for me because my priority is the photos and then the decor and then all of the rest of the words that I add. Well, I don't know, maybe that's not true. The first is just the photos for sure. What comes next? I'm not 100% sure anymore what that is in terms of priority. So I like to add my photos first because they're the most important part of this layout to me. I want to make sure that I get them all down, that they go where feels most pleasing to me in the layout. I like to try to include them where they happened. So, for example, if I took a photo on Saturday, I'd like to include it on Saturday. If I can't, it's okay. And it's really okay if it's an arbitrary photo like the one of my bookshelf or of my pets, something like that, that it doesn't really matter what date that happened on because it honestly looks the same every particular day. I do a little bit of overlapping to save space because, for example, you might have two photos, like those two prom photos that were both taken on Saturday, but I can't realistically get them down on the page in a way that looks good to me if I don't sort of stagger them. I also just really like how it looks too, so it works out very well. I use this Scotch ATG gun because it's the strongest adhesive or tape runner that I know of. And I've been scrapbooking for 25 years. And so I know that not all adhesive is created the same. It's just important to me that the things actually stay on the page once I put them there, like 5 years from now, I don't want to come back and look at this and have some of the photos fallen out. I like to include, obviously, the special activities, prom, Mother's Day, going to the beach, baseball games, things like that. But I also like to include other things, looks at things around our house, our neighborhood, my pets, just all kinds of things, food, just all the stuff that makes up life, right? It's not only the exciting moments. So, I think that if I did not have as much going on, which I certainly will not in the future, right? I will probably just downsize my planner rather than not do the project, if that makes sense. Because I recognize that in an 8.5 by 11 planner is a lot of real estate to cover. And so maybe in the future, I will feel more comfortable with a smaller planner. I am using the Coco Daisy Where the Sea Dreams collection for this particular layout. I will link it below. If you have not purchased from Coco Daisy before, I also have a coupon code below that you can use to save 10%. And I love the colors of this collection. It's so pretty. It's like a muted blue and then a whole bunch of neutrals, and it's just gorgeous. The colors they really speak to me. I like to use the memory keeping sticker kit. It is sized to fit in this size of boxes, so 2 inches wide. So, for example, a Big Happy Planner or the Coco Daisy Daisy Planner. And I like to use this kit. It's just set up perfectly for the way that I do this. However, I like to use elements from other kits as well. The stamps, the journaling kit, the rub-ons and the stickers are great. And then also just different bits from other kits that are mostly flat. I try to stick to flat elements for this planner because I have done this before. I know that if you add too many insert pages, if you add too many bulky elements, I have to upsize in my discs. And let me tell you, that is not as delightful as it sounds. Storing it is cumbersome, flipping through it is cumbersome. So I want to stick to the smallest size discs that I can for this project. These rub-ons are amazing for this project. They add essentially zero bulk. Like you can feel the smoothness when you rub your hands over it, but you cannot feel any bulk or any lift off of the page. They're very, very low profile. And so rub-ons are just genius for this project. And I mean, obviously, any other project that you don't want any bulk as well. But I love these because we can layer them on top of each other and other things too. Like they layer beautifully. There's zero bulk. They're so pretty. I am always a big fan of the Cocoa Daisy rub-on transfers, and especially these ones that look like splashes or just different watercolor images, things like that. They make wonderful layering pieces because they're so pretty. So I tore the paper, I layered the little rub-on cluster on top of it, and then I'm also going to add one of these little deco cards. And I just like the way that that all comes together. It's really pretty. And yes, there is a beach layout or a beach photo on this layout. However, the overall theme isn't specifically beach. I mean, if that makes sense, it's just a week in our life, and we did happen to go to the beach, and these supplies are stunningly beautiful. So the color palette is, I already said multiple times now, great, but I just love the way that all this comes together, and I am a big fan of blue, which I also talk about often. So yeah, I'll save you a little bit there from that. So see how that layering comes together, and it's just simple little elements from the kit. Like it's not like I'm using wild and crazy things. I'm using a corner of torn paper. I'm using one rub-on. I'm using one die cut, one deco card, and then you get this whole big, great cluster that feels really dimensional. And I like the way that it turned out down there in that lower corner. I will be for this particular week also including a pocket page in between because we did go to the beach. We went to the dog beach. It's Mother's Day. So I thought that that probably warranted a pocket page for this particular layout. So for my last decorative cluster, I'm going to punch these little rectangles from that gorgeous wave paper. I'll use it to layer or use those two rectangles to layer to create another little cluster. You can see we've got the two rectangles of pattern paper. We've got a couple of little die cuts. Just goes together so beautifully. And again, I just feel like it's very, very simple. You add together little elements and you create one bigger thing that is much more interesting than any of the things are individually. And I really like that a lot. And so you can see then there's a little sticker of the ticket right below, and then I'm going to add this tag on top of it. And again, it does the same thing that the other one. It just feels like it has so much depth and so much interest, and it's just one of each of these little bits and pieces. Now, I also like to add these boxes, and sometimes I just write directly on the page, but add the little boxes for, in this case, these are baseball games. And I say this almost every video, but this is how I started this project in 2016, which was that I had three school-age kids and our life was so busy, so busy. And I'm not glorifying busy, it just was. I had three kids in sports and school and all of that stuff. And so I really wanted to record what our life looked like. And this was such a good way to do it because I could include visual reminders and then also like write down games and outings and field trips and sports. And so that when we looked back on those planners in the future, we would see, wow, we really were super busy. Things have calmed down. Two of my kids have graduated from college now, and my youngest son will be a senior in high school. So things are obviously a lot different than they were in 2016. However, I still enjoy the process. I still enjoy this weekly look at our lives, especially the little ordinary bits, the parts around our house and the places that we went, things like that. Alphabet stickers are one of my favorite things. Again, another thing that I say very regularly. I just love how you can make something ordinary look more special. So, library, for example, I went to the library. That is not particularly exciting. But when you add those alphabet stickers, it makes them more interesting all at the same time. So now I'll just go back in and write those games. For example, on these, I like to write the time, I like to write the location and the opponent. It just, I feel like it's part of the story, and that in the future, when we look back upon it, it will be really cool to have all of those details in one spot. So that's kind of why I do this. And I really, really cannot stress enough how much I enjoy the finished result and the process. So I had hoarded back in the day some of these Happy Planner pocket pages. And I did this because I knew they were discontinuing them and I love them. And I can absolutely take other page protectors and punch disc holes in them. Absolutely. But it's just obviously much more simple to have these that already are punched for them. So what I have done is I have printed some photos and I'm going to put them directly in the pockets. And then I will add decorative bits and journaling as well to the rest of the pockets. This just allows me to add some extra photos. And in this case, they're basically of Mother's Day. And we took the dogs to the dog beach and I didn't feel like that was enough. I needed more photos of that day. It was so fun. And yeah, so that's where the page comes in. I try not to do this very often though, because as I said already, it makes the planner so bulky. I'm going through the pocket cards from the scrapbooking kit pocket cards and choosing the ones that I like the most that work for this particular insert, and then deciding which of those to actually go ahead and use. There are several that I really like a lot and that work, and yeah, which ones should I use? So that's kind of what I'm deciding right here. And then I'm also going to trim up some patterned paper to go right in those squares as well. I keep the same idea here in that I'm trying to keep it as flat as possible and add as little bulk. So I'm not adding any chipboard stickers or anything like that. However, I have learned that with the chipboard, you can peel them apart. So I can just take the front off and not use the back side. And that does cut down on the bulk quite a bit if I really had the perfect piece that I wanted to use. However, I'm not going to do that here. I'm just going to leave it as it is. And I love how it turned out. It's so, so cute. Okay, so then now I have this one card and I'm going to just hand write some journaling on this particular card. And that's what I love about cards like this, is that there is a great decorative element, but then there's still plenty of room to add some journaling, or I could add a photo there, anything, like there's still options. So yeah, that's what I am doing with this particular card. And then I will add it back in the page protector. So that works perfectly. And now the layout is done. Like, it looks great. I'm really happy with it. And I can move on to my next layout, which we're just going to finish up another layout. I do often, if I don't have time to document that particular week, I am at least in 2025 trying to print the photos and adhere them to the pages because in the future, the photos are the hardest part about going back and finishing pages. So if I can at least have the photos down, I am saving myself all kinds of trouble and I am here for that. So absolutely that's what I'm doing. That's why when I flipped through, you probably saw some pages that had photos and nothing else. And I will get to those pages. I always go back and document or, finish them up, but having the photos is just so helpful. Okay, so now I can go ahead and I can adhere those photos down. So you saw I cut them up. I'm going to just place them on the days that they occurred in, the best way possible. Not always, that doesn't always work, but when it does, I'm super stoked about that. And I will overlap some because that's just the way it goes. Some days have 4 photos and some days have none. And I'm okay with that because it works out. Honestly, it just works out really well to have some days that don't have photos because then, as I said, some days have a lot of photos. I do also like to occasionally punch the photos into a circle. I really think that that shakes things up a little bit and it also definitely saves room. You can see how much smaller that circle is than the rectangles. This is honestly a really, really easy way to add photos to a planner. Maybe you don't want to add as many photos as I do, but I think just using a simple planner, whichever size works best for you, and adhering photos can be honestly, it can be enough. You don't have to do any more than that. Or you can do that and then just add some handwritten journaling and go on. Like, I just think that this is such a gift to future me to see a week at a glance and all of these little details. Absolutely, in this day and age when we're using phones, I can go back and I can look at my photos for sure. But this is just such a beautiful way to see a different picture, all of these at once. So I have no plans of stopping this project anytime soon because it's just so enjoyable. All right, so for this particular layout, I am using the Cocoa Daisy Wild Flutterby collection. Sorry, Flutterby. And I am afraid of butterflies, which I know is strange. So I'm not huge into using the butterfly elements. I will use some, however, but I'm not going to go crazy. But I will be using the die cuts and the memory keeping sticker kit and other things from the scrapbooking kit and the creative kit, and Lord knows probably some others as well. I just like to go through these too. Sometimes there are specific things that I kind of have in mind that I might want to use, or I look at them and I think, what can I build an ideal cluster out of? And so that's kind of what I'm looking at when I'm going through, like, say, these die cuts, for example. Like, I want to build a little cluster. I see that tag. Oh, wow, the tag is great. Then what can I use? Then I see this label. Awesome. And then I can layer some other of the more organic elements, the flowers, those types of things. So you can see I'm just going to punch out this little piece of pattern paper. I love the watercolor splatters on that paper, by the way. It's just the butterflies I could live without. But I'm still not going to discriminate against the butterflies. I'm still going to use them, especially because I love the background paper so much. The die cuts are self-adhesive, which makes it really handy because you don't have to add any to the back. And that's awesome, especially for some of the smaller ones where it can be a little bit more difficult. Like if there's a really thin, I'm trying to think of the word for the green part on a flower, stem, thank you. And it can be a little bit more difficult. So having them be self-adhesive is really fantastic. So you can see we've got a little cluster down there. And just like I said about the last layout, a cluster like that I absolutely love because it feels like it has a ton of bulk, or not bulk in terms of like physicalness, but has a lot of depth with all the different elements, but it's very, very simple. And that case, yes, I did use several pieces of ephemera. However, typically, as you saw, I will use stickers and ephemera and all kinds of different bits and pieces. Now we're going to use the stamp from the Creative Kit, and we're going to stamp it several times to sort of mimic a butterfly's flight. And then I will use the stencil that is also in the kit to add some colors to it, just because, I mean, can't leave those butterflies black and white. They need to feel as cheerful and fun as the rest of this layout. So the stencil is great because I can just go ahead and in my case, I'm going to use a blending brush, but you might use a little foam dauber or something else like that to add the color directly on here. And I don't have to worry about it because the stencil is guiding my way. I simply just chose 3 colors that I had handy and matched the collection. I didn't really give it too much thought, and they definitely don't feel like colors I would ordinarily choose, and I certainly wouldn't ordinarily choose them together. However, I like the way that it turned out. I think it's really cute, and purple is fun, pink is fun, yellow is fun, and so putting all of those together in these flying butterflies is great. And I do really enjoy how altering the orientation of each of them makes it feel, it gives it like movement, makes it feel like the butterflies are moving. So I'm using this larger brush, and it was definitely a mistake. I should have pulled out a smaller one. I mean, it's fine. It's just significantly harder to use with a stencil of this size because it's pretty small. So sticking to the smaller little blending brushes makes a whole lot more sense, that's for sure. Using the ink in this way with the blending brushes is really satisfying too. If you haven't tried it, I highly recommend it. It's really fun to do. I always enjoy myself, and that's why I find myself seeking out stencils that I can realistically use in my projects because I think it's very fun to do. I wanted to add a couple of these PET butterflies as well, just to go along with the little group of them that are flying up, up, up and away. Now, also in the scrapbooking kit is those word stickers, and I'm a big, huge fan of those. So I decided that I was going to look through them, but then I couldn't find one that I wanted to use right that second. So instead, I decided to heat set the ink. These are Distress Oxide inks, and so they are very, very wet, and they take a while to actually dry. So that's why I helped it out a little bit with the heat tool. Now, obviously, I lost my recording there for a second and didn't really realize it. So you missed me finishing up the dates and then adding those alphabet stickers to spell out review journal. I don't know if you guys saw on that my Instagram about the release of my review journal or the review journal that is inspired by my book journal, but I will link it up below in case you are interested in it. It's really fun. If you followed my book journal at all, I think you will not be surprised by this journal. It's really fantastic, however. Now I'm going through the alphabets, the letters, to find the letters that spell out Jasmine because that is a photo of Jasmine in my backyard. And if you are familiar with jasmine, you know it smells amazing and it only lasts for a short period of time, at least in my backyard. So I absolutely try to make note of when it is and enjoy it because it's so wonderful. So I'm just going to pull the backs off because these are adhesive, self-adhesive, and I'm going to add these right down there. And just like we talked about in the last layout, I love the alphabets. I think that, yes, of course, they make wonderful titles on scrapbook layouts or different phrases on cards. However, I think that they are just absolutely wonderful for really making something more special and making the page look more decorative in my memory planner. I'm doing this sideways so that I can have the top of the alphas sit flush with that top line. Otherwise, it was a little bit difficult for me to do that, and turning it on its side made the most sense and just made it easiest for me to do. These alphabets are part of the memory keeping sticker kit. It's one of the reasons that I like this kit a lot because it always comes with a sheet of alphabet stickers. And I mean, obviously, I enjoy using them in my memory planner. Now, I didn't really predict that I was going to use those alphas again, but I couldn't help myself because I really liked how they brought a super neutral pop to the page while still celebrating like what I was highlighting. So I like how that turned out a lot. And then, of course, I mean, who doesn't want to highlight s'mores in their memory planner? I mean, I certainly do, obviously. So that is what I am doing down here. And I'll pull the backs off because, again, they are self-adhesive, which is awesome. I cannot stress to you enough how cool that is to have ephemera and these alphabets that already have the adhesive on the back. All I have to do is pull them off. Yes, I sometimes struggle with it, but I mean, I do have longer nails, so that is obviously why it's a little bit more of a struggle for me. You thought I was finished. I am not. I need to add even more alphabet stickers to this layout because I did not have enough already. I don't know. I just sometimes I feel it. I feel it right inside. I got to do it. And luckily for me, I'm always very thrilled when it turns out and I like how they look. So I was moved and it's wonderful. All right, so that is it. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment box below and I will do my very best to get back to you. And all of the links and the discount code and everything you need is also down below this video. Thank you so much and make it a great day.